Well, when it comes to the attractiveness and the functionality of the career paths, they are quite different in a sense. But there are some similarities too, I would say. Not least do we have to address the skill development during the PhD training. Today it is largely siloed into the field of your own activity, and that's very good for high quality PhD in whatever field you're active. But considering the fact that most of the PhD trained people will not work in academia as such, they need other types of additional training and insights. And they go into the fields of communication, leadership, entrepreneurship, etc. But this is equally true, I would say, for people that could continue to do their careers in academia, because as a group leader in science, in academia, you need to be able to lead, to communicate, and to find funding, i.e. you are an entrepreneur in a sense within the system. So I would say these lateral complementary skills are useful for all career paths. And today I think that universities to a too large degree do not take the responsibility in training these additional skills, and that handicaps many of the people that undergo PhD training. So that's one basic alteration that needs to be put in place. And I'm not sure that the universities all over will do this themselves. This needs to be governed slightly from above, I think, by basically making it obligatory to have elements which are lateral to what you do within your PhD program. So that's one aspect. The other side of things is that I think we need to make the academic career pathways more clear, in the sense that various types of tenure track systems need to be put in place so that it's easier to calculate which route you could or should take. Of course, you know that you may not always win the position, but at least you know what the rules of the game are. So I think we need to have a more structured career path within academia. And outside academia, I think European industry and governmental agencies need to be made more aware of the value of people with analytical training the way a PhD provides. And this is slightly different in the US, where industry and governmental agencies and so more easily pick up and see the value of people with a PhD background and retrain them slightly to fit what is needed in the new type of tasks. Well, the EU level is one important level, but I think also it could be done at national levels in a sense. But it's valuable if the EU were to somehow stimulate and maybe regulate what a PhD should contain in this realm. It's difficult to talk about regulations because I don't think Europe is ready for total regulation, since we're in an era where people are questioning some of the regulations coming from EU, sometimes appropriately so, sometimes less, because some things can best be done at the EU level, I think. And this is difficult to say where it's best done. Some universities really take good responsibility and does this well, but the vast majority do not. So it would begin through the funding streams which are largely national, I would say. So by an EU-coordinated stimulus package for the national structures to make bits and pieces of this obligatory, others voluntary, I think that could be one route to go. So it's a combination of stick and carrot, I guess. But I feel we absolutely need it, and European industry needs it too. Well, that's a major challenge, the way that you have a large cohort of people that are moving between universities or even within universities from contract to contract. That's a great challenge. I would guess that if you look at the funding composition of universities, they are a mix of federal/national, some maybe state in certain countries. Other funding is of course EU, even though that's marginal. If you look at the percentage of it, it's much less than 10% overall. Okay. And then you have of course competitive grants from various other types of sources. So in a sense it's inherent in the university setup that grants will to some degree determine how you will operate. But from my perspective, we've gone too far into the externalization of the university strategy setting. Because now today, universities have, in Europe not least, too little of their own, let's say, destiny in their hands. They have too small endowments, if any, some universities. So I think it would be extremely valuable to equip universities with a larger resource base so that they can plan for longer periods beyond the whims of various grant bodies. And that would, I believe, facilitate the preservation of key, let's say, competencies within the university. Because some things are very important to maintain over many years, sometimes decades. It's unique experiences or unique expertise that you cannot let a single grant opportunity make or die, so to speak. So that's one example. So I think we need to strengthen the university's own resource base as one reflection of what we just discussed. And that could be used for, to some degree then, to make more stable careers of key people. It was very rare that people came back to academia. Now we see a little bit more of that, the people going back into academia, continue or build up a new academic career, but it's still much less common than the other way around. In America, it's more common that you float in between different types of let's say, activities. You go into a company, go back to academia, you might go into a foundation, you might work in government, and there's nothing strange with it. Of course, there will be slight handicaps on the overlapping periods, but the value with the various types of experiences, I think, clearly outweigh the negative aspects. There are overlapping characteristics in an entrepreneur and a scientist, for example, because you have to have strong perseverance, you have to be very stubborn, you have to find funding, you have to believe very strongly in an idea. The differences between the entrepreneur and the scientist is, of course, that the entrepreneur needs to rely much more on externalities, in the sense that has to take a very complex market into consideration and understand the market, the competition. Scientists also have to understand their market, which largely is funding and, of course, publications. But that's somewhat different from the complexities of an entrepreneur. So an entrepreneur needs to have many assets in a personality sense, and that is to build relations, to understand the world, to have both deep and broad networks in order to assess what goes on and how to reposition the product, the project, the company. So yes, you need a lot of very specific characteristics which boil down to, I would say, stubbornness and communication skills.